Have you ever found an object that seemed completely out of place? A coin with a face you didn't recognize? A piece of technology that looked both ancient and futuristic at the same time? For the past few months, reports of these strange artifacts have been popping up all over the globe. At first, they were dismissed as elaborate hoaxes, internet pranks designed to go viral, but the evidence became too overwhelming to ignore. It started subtly. A single, perfectly preserved trilobite fossil was found embedded in a freshly paved sidewalk in downtown Tokyo. A week later, a Roman centurion's helmet, made of an alloy that baffled metallurgists, was discovered on a remote beach in Australia. In a quiet suburban home in Ohio, a family found a children's storybook in their attic, written in a language that resembled a mix of Latin and binary code. The illustrations depicted kids playing with floating orbs of light. These weren't just random objects. They were whispers from other worlds, echoes from alternate time. Each artifact was a keyhole, offering a tantalizing glimpse into a different version of humanity. What if the Romans had never fallen, but instead developed space travel? What if the dinosaurs had survived, evolving alongside early mammals? The objects suggested infinite possibilities, infinite branches of our own history. Governance, of course, tried to contain the information. A clandestine international organization, codenamed Project Chimera, was formed to collect and study these incursions. Their top scientist, Dr. Aristorni, was a theoretical physicist who had dedicated his life to the multiverse theory. For him, this wasn't a crisis. It was the ultimate vindication. He believed these weren't just leaks, but messages. Invitations. Thorne's team worked in a secret underground facility, a vast hangar filled with tables laden with impossible things. There was a compass whose needle didn't point north, but to a location that didn't exist on any map. There was a musical instrument that produced sounds capable of manipulating local gravity. And there was the Chronos Cube, a small, pulsating black box that, when touched, showed flashes of its owner, SciFi, lived in a world where the sky was perpetually twilight and 2 moons hung overhead. The source of the leaks was a mystery. Thorne theorized that the walls between universes were thinning, becoming porous. He compared it to a membrane saturated with water, eventually allowing droplets to seep through. But why now? Was it a natural cosmic cycle? Or was someone deliberately poking holes in reality? The first real breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a perfectly preserved seed pod found in the Amazon rainforest. It was unlike any known botanical specimen. Under analysis, the pod emitted a faint, rhythmic energy signature. It wasn't random noise. It was a complex, repeating pattern. A signal. Thorne and his team spent weeks deciphering it. The signal wasn't a language in the conventional sense. It was a set of mathematical constants and physical laws, but with slight, almost imperceptible variations from our own. It was like reading a familiar book where a few key words had been changed, altering the entire meaning. The signal was a cosmic address, a set of coordinates pointing to a specific point in space-time. But it wasn't a place. It was a time. A moment when a massive energy event was scheduled to occur, an event that would tear a permanent gateway between our universe and another. The date was just 3 days away. Panic wasn't an option. Project Chimera had to act. Their mission shifted from passive collection to active intervention. They needed to understand who or what was on the other side of that impending gateway. Were they explorers? Conquerors? Refugees? Using the data from the seed pod, Thorne's team managed to create a device, a reality anchor. Designed to stabilize the interdimensional membrane around the designated coordinates, it wouldn't prevent the gateway from opening, but it could, in theory, contain it, turning a potential cataclysm into a controllable window. As the day arrived, the atmosphere in the control room was thick with tension. The location of the event was a desolate stretch of the Siberian tundra. Drones and satellites were all focused on a single, empty patch of frozen ground. On the main screen, a countdown timer ticked relentlessly toward 0. Thorne stood before the console, his hand hovering over the activation switch for the reality anchor. At 0 hour, nothing happened. The tundra remained still. A collective sigh of relief started to ripple through the room. but it was cut short by a piercing alarm. It wasn't coming from the Siberian site, it was coming from their own facility. One of the collected artifacts, a simple silver locket found in a Parisian flea market, began to glow with an intense white light. Before anyone could react, the light expanded, engulfing the lab in a blinding flash. When their vision returned, everything was the same, yet profoundly different. The air hummed with a strange energy. Thorn looked at the main screen. The Siberian tundra was no longer empty. A simmering vertical tear in the fabric of space hung in the air, a swirling vortex of color and light. The gateway was open, but the real shock was inside the room. A figure stood in the center of the lab, right where the locket had been. It was a woman, dressed in simple, gray fatigues, looking just as bewildered as they were. She was human. She looked around at the stunned scientists, her eyes wide. "Did it work?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Did the message get through?" Thorn slowly approached her. "What message?" The woman pointed a shaky finger at the screen, showing the Siberian gateway. "That," she said, "that's not an invasion. It's an evacuation. Our universe is dying. We sent the artifacts as a warning, as a plea for help." Suddenly, everything clicked into place. The objects weren't random leaks. They were breadcrumbs, deliberately sent through. Each one contained a piece of the puzzle, a part of the signal, leading them to this exact moment. The locket wasn't just another artifact. It was the final key, a homing beacon for the woman, who introduced herself as Ilara, explained that her universe was collapsing from a cosmic event they had failed to prevent. Their only hope was to find a stable reality to escape to. They had been sending probes and signals for decades, searching for a compatible world, a reality that could sustain them. A reality, the gateway in Siberia, was their ark. They had gambled everything on the hope that whoever received their message would be compassionate, not hostile. Now, humanity faced a choice that would define its future. Do we welcome 1 billion refugees from a dying world, sharing our resources and our home? Or do we close the door, saving ourselves but condemning an alternate version of humanity to extinction? The strange objects that had once been curiosities were now symbols of a profound moral dilemma. The multiverse was no longer a theory. It was knocking on our front door, asking to be let in. The answer we give will echo across all realities. This story is just beginning to unfold. What happens next? What new challenges and wonders await as our world collides with another? There are so many possibilities to explore. Thank you so much for watching and joining me on this journey. If you're curious to see what happens to humanity and the refugees from another universe, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We have many more stories from the leaking multiverses to share with you. See you in the next one.